You can see. So welcome to this class. Today I'll be taking ECGs. It is the basic introduction for ECGs. So keeping your exams in point of view. So the first, see, heart has got an inbuilt conduction tissue. Heart has got a inbuilt conduction tissue, which creates the impulse. It creates the impulse and transmits it. Usually the impulse is created in the SA node. You can see the SA node, which is situated in the right atrium here. This is the superior vena cava, and this is the right atrium. At the junction, in the posterior aspect of the heart, you get this SA node. This node is the pacemaker. That means it sets the rhythm. It sets the rhythm of the heart. It sets the rhythm of the heart. Okay. So once the impulse which are created here, they get distributed throughout the heart. Now in the atria, they distribute like this. And when they reach the AV node here, this is the AV node. You can see here, this is AV node. And from the AV node, it comes to the ventricles. So the only in normal persons, the impulse from the atria, the impulse from the atria can reach the ventricle via this AV node only. It cannot go otherwise. So this is the only gateway for going into the ventricles. So this AV node has got a lot of functions. It forms a gateway to allow the appropriate impulse from the atria to reach the ventricles. It keeps a check on that. It doesn't allow the lot many impulses to go into the ventricles. So a sort of a filter or a sort of a guard to the ventricles. So that is a basic function of AV node. So from the AV node, we can see this bundle of His. This thick part is a bundle of His. This bundle of His divides into the left bundle and the right bundle. So again, this left bundle, which is thicker, divides into two fasciculus, anterior and posterior fasciculus. It can anterior fasciculus is there, and posterior fasciculus is there. This is the posterior fasciculus. This is the anterior fasciculus. You can see that. This is anterior fasciculus. This is posterior fasciculus here. You can see that. So that's how the right bundle divides. However, the right bundle, this is the left bundle. The right bundle doesn't have such major divisions. This is something about the conduction tissue of the heart you need to know to understand ECG. Okay. Are you confused here? Shall I go to the next slide? Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Are you there? Okay. You speak out, man. I don't mind. It'll be nice that if you're interacting, it will be easy for us. Okay. I'll go in detail more about SA node, that is sinoatrial node. So normally the SA node is a pacemaker of the heart. This is because it discharges the impulses at the highest rate of the rest of the heart. As it discharging at the higher rate, it sets the rhythm. It sets the rhythm of the heart. Then comes the AV node, which can discharge little less than that and less other tissue like that. So as SA node is discharging at a higher rate, this can be an MCQ. Why SA node is the pacemaker of the heart? They can ask like that. So this is because SA node discharges at the higher rate, speed, the number of impulses per minute or more compared to the rest of the heart. That's why it is the pacemaker of the heart. Okay. SA node is situated, as I told you, the right superior region of the heart. Okay. I'll go to the AV node. AV node is situated in between the atrium and ventricle here. And this is the basic function is filter the impulses coming from the atria. There can be a situation when a lot of impulses can be generated in the atria due to some diseases like atrial fibrillation. Imagine atrial fibrillation is a very common arrhythmia. It is a common arrhythmia. If AV node was not there, all the impulse of atrial fibrillation go into the ventricle. You can expect the ventricle also can fibrillate and patient may die. So just because there is a AV node here, although the atrial fibrillation being a common node, it still forms a protection. Patient will not die. So that's why AV node is a protective mechanism it has got. It slows down the heart. There are a lot of refractory. You must have read about refractory period in your physiology classes. Sure. Have you read about refractory period? Huh? Have you read about refractory period? Nobody is answering. I don't know why. There are two types of refractory period: absolute and relative. In neuromuscular conduction chapter of physiology, you must read about this. So the AV nodal refractory period is longer compared to the rest. This reflect increased duration of refractory period of AV node forms a protection. It forms a protection here. Now, as I told, after that AV node, there is a bundle of His and left and right bundles. I discussed about this. They are there in the ventricles. The left bundle supplies the left ventricle, left bundle for left ventricle, right bundle for right ventricle. It is. Now, let us study something about ECG paper, how it is there. You can see there are two types of square. One is small. This part is enlarged here. So you can see there are two squares. This is a bigger square. Outer square is a bigger square. This is a bigger square, whereas this is a small square. So there are two squares. So square inside a square. So these bigger squares, ECG machine is by default is set to run with a certain speed and to record a voltage with a certain height. You are getting me? ECG machine by default, this can be varied. These things can be varied. This ECG machine by default is set to run at a certain speed and to record a voltage at a certain height. With the default speed, when it runs, this big square records the 0.2 seconds. Whereas that means the small square, there are how many? 4. It will record 0.04 seconds. The small squares record, see here, I written here 0.04 seconds. The big square records horizontally, it records 0.2 seconds. So, and the height, the small square, the height is 0.1 millivolt. So, one big square is 0.5. The voltage is 0.5 for big square and duration is 0.2. This is for big square. Similarly, for a small square, it is 0.04 seconds and 0.1 millivolt. This is the normal duration of the speed, the normal setting of the ECG machine for this standard paper. We can ask questions here. You should know this. These things they can ask. Okay. So lead placement. So there are, the ECG machine has got leads. There are actually 12 leads. ECG is recorded with using 12 leads. 12 leads. Of the 12 leads, 6 are limb, 6 are derived from the precardium. So the limb leads are recorded by using electrodes placed on the right upper limb, left upper limb, left lower limb, and right lower limb. All the 4 limbs are used to record the ECG for limb leads. So these limb leads are color coded. They are color coded. So the right upper limb, the color is red. Left upper limb color is yellow. The left lower limb color is green, and whereas the black is for right lower limb. This is the color coding for limb leads. Now, so the chest, that's our limb leads now. Limb leads, I said there are 6. The limb, namely the leads, limb leads are lead 1, lead 2, and lead 3. Roman and AVR, AVL, AVF. These are the 6 limb leads of ECG. So we'll discuss about the lead 1, 2, 3 in this slide. So you all know the heart is like this actually. Heart is like this. So the heart axis is like this. So the electrical axis of the heart is like this. So it flows like this. So that means this is negative, this is positive. The electric current flows like this in the heart. You should know that. You should, the biggest vector of the heart is in this direction. That's about in the, I'm talking about anterior posterior line. So I'm talking about anterior posterior line. That is the biggest vector. So keeping this in account, the limb leads have been designed. So that means the positivity of the heart is on the left and lower part. You can see the positivity of the heart is here. That is towards the left, and towards down. That is a positivity. So you should keep this in mind. So if you want to record like this in the 4 quadrants, this forms the place of the heart. This quadrant forms the, keep this in mind, because the heart axis is like this. So this forms the most positive part. This forms the place for the heart, where this forms the almost opposite of the heart. See, that's what you should remember. This is the in the hexagonal or in the vertical plane. If you see, this is how the heart is arranged. So keeping these in mind, the limb leads have been designed. Now as I said, the positivity is on the left side. The lead one, which has got a positive electrode tied to the left upper limb and a negative to the right upper limb. That is for the lead 1. Whereas for the lead 2, you can see here the positive electrode is in the left lower limb, and the negative is for the right upper limb. Similarly, the lead 3, the left lower limb is positive and left upper limb is negative. So this how they can ask these questions, which is positive in lead 1, which is positive in lead 2, they can ask. By remembering this diagram, you can get into, because the heart is like this, the almost, see, this part is always positive. This can be positive or negative depending upon the lead. For lead 3, it is negative. For lead 1, this is positive. Whereas this is always negative, whatever it is. Like that. So lead 3 is like this. Lead 2, this is, sorry. Lead 3. This is lead 1. So keep this in mind, this picture in mind, so it is easy to remember. So now let us, when I completed those lead 1, 2, 3, now we'll go to other 3 leads, other 3 leads. That's it. AVR, AVL, and AVF. These are the 3 limb leads. AVR is, you can get the AVR lead by, how can get is, we tie a positive electrode to the right arm and we add up the left arm and left lower limb and tie it to the negative part of the electrodes. So positive electrode is for the right arm, the negative is for other 2. So it becomes AVR, this R, you can see here. This R is right upper limb, this R. So similarly, AVL is left upper limb is positive, other RA and LL are negative. This is a sort of augmentation. So for AVF, left lower limb is positive and right upper limb and left upper limb are negative. So the right lower limb, so this is a reference point. This right lower limb is a reference point. It is a reference point. It is not tied to any of the leads. See, you can see neither in 1, 2, 3 or in this, what is augmented leads, we don't use it. It is just a reference point. Now we'll come to the other 6 leads, that are just leads. It is from V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, and V6. That is 1 to 6 V. It is just leads. You can see V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. Now we just drink water. These precordial or just leads, we get attach the V1 lead in the which fourth intercostal space, just by the side of the manubrium sternum. This is the manubrium sternum. Just by the side, on the right side, we put a V1 lead. So similarly, opposite on the left side, in the fourth intercostal space, just by the side of the manubrium sternum, we put a lead V2. And V4 is kept in the fifth intercostal space. This is the fourth intercostal space. This is the fifth intercostal space. V4 is placed in the mid clavicular line. This is the mid clavicular line. In the fifth intercostal space is V4. So V3 is actually in between V2 and V3. V4, sorry. V3 lead is in between V2 and V3. Between these two, we get V3. And V5 is in the same horizontal line. When it comes to V5 and V6, it's not intercostal space. It is a horizontal line drawn from this V4. But in the anterior axillary line, we put V5, and the mid axillary line, we put V6. This is how the just leads are placed. This can be MCQs. Similarly, the same table I have put it here. So now let us go to the waves of the normal ECG. Now this is a normal ECG. You can see there is a, what is this? This is a P wave. This is a QRS complex. This is a T wave. This is a QRS complex. So P wave is, I'll go to the, then let's go to this one. Okay. P wave is due to atrial depolarization. This wave is due to atrial depolarization. The initial part is actually right atrium. The later part is left atrium. Okay, this P wave, it can be divided. The right initial part to majority it is because of right atrium. The later part is due to left atrium. So you can say like that. Then we have got Q wave, R wave, and S wave. The whole thing, that is QRS. We call it as a complex. QRS complex is due to ventricular depolarization. Ventricular depolarization is this QRS complex. Then we have got a T wave. This T wave is due to ventricular repolarization. Ventricular repolarization. Then sometimes we may see U wave. This is, nobody knows how exactly the U waves are formed. It is query, cause for U wave. Now, as there are waves, you have got segments, you have got intervals, all that I'll come to next. Now, okay. Now, QRS complex. We'll come to QRS complex. In QRS complex, the Q wave. This is Q wave. What is Q wave? Q wave is Q wave is first negative deflection. It is first negative deflection of QRS complex is Q wave. Okay. If you get any negative deflection initially before the Q wave is negative deflection before positive wave. That is, what I mean to say is, see, you got a R wave here, and before that the Q wave was one more negative wave. This is negative, this is positive. Before the R wave, there is a negative deflection. So that is the first negative deflection here. In other words, before R wave, you got a negative wave. This is the Q wave. If you get substitute after the R wave, any R wave negative, it is called S wave. So before Q wave, after R wave, it is S wave. Okay. Okay. So S wave is after negative deflection after R wave. Q wave is negative deflection before R wave. You're all getting me? Nobody is talking. You're hearing or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, as I discussed about T wave already, I discussed about T wave. Now I'll tell something about this. Uh, okay, you can see there is a mention of PR interval. There is a PR interval. Okay. Okay. Segments of ECG. Okay, I'll come here next. So we'll discuss about PR segment. There are two things here. You can see PR segment and PR interval. They are actually different. They are actually different. It is obvious. See here, the PR segment is from what? End of the P wave and beginning of the QRS complex. This is PR segment. Where PR interval is from the beginning of the P wave and to the beginning of QRS complex here, Q wave. This is PR interval. Okay. So the purpose is this interval speaks about the conduction, predominantly conduction time utilized by the AV node, actually. AV node. If there is a disease in the AV node, PR interval may get prolonged. Okay. And PR segment we use to calculate the isoelectric line. This is the isoelectric line. To say something has gone up, something has gone down, we compare this PR segment. That is the purpose of these two. Then the QRS interval is complex complete from beginning of the QRS complex to end of the QRS complex. This is the QRS interval. So ST segment similarly, end of the QRS complex to the beginning of the T wave is ST segment. This is important one for diagnosis of ischemic heart disease. ST segment. Okay, this segment. Okay. Now ST interval similarly, beginning of the this ST segment to the end of the T wave is ST interval. There is something called as QT interval, that is beginning of the QRS complex to the end of the T wave. This is more important interval actually. This is more important. So QT interval is important very much. You should know that. They can ask questions here. That is from the beginning of the QRS complex to the end of the QRS complex is QT interval. Beginning of the, that is end of the QRS complex to the end of the T wave is ST interval, whereas ST segment is end of the QRS complex and the beginning of the T wave. And RR interval is used to calculate the heart rate, the distance between the two R waves, the previous and the next beat. This is next beat, this is the first beat, previous beat. This duration is used to calculate the heart rate. I'll come to that, heart rate. Or that means more specifically ventricular rate. So we discuss this. Okay. I told you the ST segment. This is ST segment. So to say the ST has gone up or gone down, we compare with this PR segment. Okay. We compare with the PR segment. If this ST, you can see here, this is the PR segment, and here ST has gone up. This is called ST elevation. Whereas this is a PR interval, PR segment here. In this, ST has gone down. It is called ST depression. ST depression. TP is in between two bits after the end of the T wave and the beginning of the subsequent next bit P wave. That is TP interval. TP segment, sorry. TP segment. So interval, same diagram I have put it here. Okay. We'll come to normal durations of these waves. Normal durations. Some important normal durations they can ask in MCQs. The P wave, it's normally it extends from 0.12 seconds to 2 seconds. That is 3 to 5 small squares. It extends. Whereas QRS complex is in between 0.08 to 0.12 seconds. That is 2 to 3 small squares. PR interval is 0.12 to 0.2. That means one big square is the maximum limit of PR interval. This is a function of AV node. If AV node is diseased, PR interval is hit. QT interval, it is what? QT interval. Answer, I told you this. Anybody can tell me what is QT interval? It is from beginning of the QRS complex to end of the T wave is QT interval. Now, normal 12 EDCs you will see. This is as I said, these 6 are limb leads, whereas these 6 are chest leads. Okay, you can see that these are all limb leads. These are all chest leads. There's, as I said, 1, 2, 3 lead, AVR, AVL, AVF. So V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. Now you can see that in the limb leads, I am going to make a very general statement. All limb leads, almost all are upwards. All the waves, you can see, they're up, except for this. AVR, lead, rest are all up. Whereas here in a chest leads from V1 to V6, from negative to it is positive. Slowly it happens like this. Transition usually happens at the V3 and V4. So in V1 is negative predominantly and V6 is positive. And these V3 and V4 are transition leads. Okay, these things you should keep in mind. Now, I told you about heart rate calculation. So I'll drink water now. Heart rate calculation is done by number of big squares. There are two ways. Two ways you can calculate number of big squares between two successive RR waves. See, there are. See here. We'll come here. See, in this ECG, the big squares. 1 is there, 2 is there, 3 is there, 4. Nearly 4 big squares. You can see. See that? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 big squares are there. Okay. I'll go to the next slide. So number of big squares. That is, in this case, how many are there? 4. So 300 divided by 4. That is around. Yes, how much it will be? 4 5s are 4. Oh, are you older? No. Can anybody calculate it? Tell me. 300 by 4. It is divisible. Around 6, 70. It must be 70, 73 something.
75, sir.
How much?
75.
75 is a heart rate. Approximate heart rate in this ECG. In this ECG, it is an approximate heart rate. Okay. Similarly, you got one more formula. If you want to be very specific, we'll use small squares now. Small squares. Okay. How to calculate small squares? Okay. See here. So you got nearly this is 1 square less big square. Here also it is a 1 square less big square. Each big square has got how many are there? There are 4. You can see 4. 4. 4 plus 4, how many? 8. 8 plus 3. 8 plus 3, how many? 8 plus 3, 11. 11 plus 3 is 11 plus 3 is 14. Yeah, 14. 14 small squares are there. So the formula will be here by using this, it will be 1500 divided by 14. It must come to similarly, it will be more accurate. If you got calculated, calculate that, it will come to 74, 76, something like that. Okay, this is the way to calculate the heart rate in a ECG. They can ask you RR into, they may give RR interval, and they may give interval. From the interval, you should derive the number of squares by multiplying this factor. So one small square is, you should derive the number of squares from that actually. If they give RR interval of some direction, then you should derive, you should know the small squares duration is this much, big square duration is this much. This is small squares duration, this is big square duration. Now let us go to the QTC interval. The importance of QTC interval is, if this QTC, actually QT interval varies with the heart rate. If the heart rate increases, the QT interval shortens. It shortens. So to call that QT as prolonged, you should consider RR interval, square root of RR interval. So actual measured QT divided by square root of RR interval gives a QTC interval. Okay, if that is more, then it suggests it is more than this. More than this, it suggests what? QTC is prolonged. Now we'll go to axis and hexagonal diagram. These MCQs are asked here. MCQs are there on the axis. Now, as I told, the electrical axis is like this. I told you, it flows from here like this. Okay, it flows like this. This is the heart, you can see here, and this is the 0. 0 is here, this is 180. This is 180. And see here, it is marked negative here. You can see it is marked negative. So the upper part above the 0, upper what is it, half of the circle is negative, whereas the lower half is positive. You should see that. First you note this here. The lower half is positive, whereas the upper half is negative. So if the electrical axis falls above the 0 line, it becomes negative. It falls below the 0 line, it becomes positive axis. That's first thing you should know. And what is the normal axis of the heart, electrical axis? It extends from minus 30. That means from here it extends minus 30 to plus 90. That means here. This is about QRS axis. I am talking about QRS vector. This much is this all thing is the normal axis of the heart. Okay. From minus 30 to plus 90 is considered as normal axis of the heart. Anything outside this, it is deviation. So if the deviation is here, if the electrical axis here, then it is called left axis. If it falls here, it becomes right axis. But if it falls here, indeterminate or northwest, because it can reach here like this also, or like this also it can reach. This part is, you can't say right or left, it is northwest, because things can come from here as well as from here. So it is northeast axis. All troubles are from northeast for us, like that. This is. Now, how to calculate the axis? To calculate the axis, you should look into lead 1 and lead 2. Come here. Okay. You should look into lead 1 and lead 2. If lead 1, see, you can see here. So, this is a QRS complex. You can see QRS complex. What you should do is, you should add up all positives and negatives. So here there is around one small negative S wave is there and predominant R wave is there. If you add up, it will be positive only. Here also similarly, it is major positive and small negative. So this is also positive. If this lead 1 and lead 2 both are positive, if lead 1 and lead 2 both are positive, it is normal axis. if lead 1 is, where is the chart? See, so lead 1 and lead 2 both are positive, it is normal axis. That means axis is between minus 30 and plus 90. If lead 1 is positive and lead 2 is negative, then it is left axis. So if it is lead 2 is positive and lead 1 is negative, it is right axis. You should remember this. So if when you look at the axis, you should see lead 1 and lead 2. If both are positive, it is normal. If left is positive and right is if lead 1 is positive and lead 2 is negative, then it is left axis. If lead 1 is negative and lead 2 is positive, then it is right axis. Okay, that's how you calculate the axis. This is very complex. I'll just go to the next one. Don't forget about that now. Just remember that because the questions have been asked from that. Now we'll go to the manifestations of ECG in with respect to hypokalemia. What is hypokalemia? Can anybody tell me? What is hypokalemia? Nobody knows what is hypokalemia?
Sir, decreased
In
potassium
the
concentration
potassium
in the
level,
blood.
yeah. That is less than, you should tell this, less than 3.5. So when the potassium level is less than 3.5, we call it hypokalemia. If it is just and it is less than 3.5 and in between above 3, it is mild. Okay. 3 to 3.5 is mild. Okay. And from 2.5 to 3, it is moderate. Less than 2.5 is severe. Okay, that's what it is. This slide is about. Okay, less than 3.5 is mild, and if it is between 3 and 3.5, it is moderate. Less than 2.5 is severe hypokalemia. They can ask questions on that, these levels. Now, the hypokalemia, what are the ECG manifestations? The T wave gets flattened here, flattening of the T wave. But there is a increase in the voltage of the U wave. Sometimes there is a prominent U wave. You may confuse with the T wave. Where the T wave comes? I told you here. See, U wave comes after the T wave. Sometimes this can become so big, and this will, it will be like this ECG. The ECG may become like this. This will obliterate. This will increase. So now the QT is prolonged. QT gets prolonged. That can happen. So U wave becomes more prominent, increase in the amplitude of the P wave. U wave is prolonged here, and T wave has become negative. In fact, U wave has become prolonged. Then the P wave increases the amplitude of the P wave. P wave can get increase in the voltage. Sagging of ST segment. That means it has become like this. It has gone, see, it is sagging. ST segment is sagging. And increase in the QT interval. I told you how it happens. This is now the QT is calculated up till here. From here to here. Because of that, the QT becomes increased. Now we'll come to hyperkalemia. The hyperkalemia means potassium levels increased more than 5.5. And if it is more than 5.5, we call it hyperkalemia mild. If it is less than 6 and more than 5.5, it is mild. And more than 6 and less than 7, it is moderate. And above 7, it is a severe hyperkalemia. Now, the ECG manifestations of hyperkalemia. As I told in previous hypokalemia, the T wave becomes negative or flattened, whereas in hyperkalemia, they become tall. See, the T waves have become very tall here. T waves become very tall. See here, the tallness of the T wave. They become very tall. And prolonged PR interval. The PR interval becomes prolonged. Sometimes there can be conduction block. It is not obvious here. In fact, there is a atrial arrest. That means the P wave may totally diminish. Whereas in hypokalemia, the P wave becomes prominent. whereas in hyperkalemia, the P wave may not be, they may disappear due to atrial arrest. And there is a QRS sine wave. Because the T wave becomes so tall, there is sine wave formation like this. Sine wave, QRS sine wave. Sine wave. See, you can see here. There is no sine wave here, but sine wave can happen. Come here. Actually, sine wave. I'll show the diagram next time. The diagram. I did not put the sine wave here. Fine. Now we'll go to hypocalcemia. QTC prolongation. QTC prolongation primarily due to prolonging of ST segment. The T wave doesn't change. What happens is, I have got a diagram on that. I'll show you. Hold on. Yeah, here you can see it. This is hypocalcemia. This ST segment is increased, where the T wave has not bothered here. It is normal, means see it. The prolongation of QT interval with respect to hypocalcemia is due to prolongation of ST segment. T wave doesn't see, that's why the T wave is typically left unchanged. In hypocalcemia, T wave is unchanged. Only the ST segment get prolonged and T wave is unchanged. And although there is a QTC prolongation, due to prolongation of the ST segment, these patients are not prone for dysarrhythmia. See, whenever prolongation of QT interval, we are afraid of what? Dysarrhythmias, arrhythmias, ventricular fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia, such dangerous things we think of. Whereas with respect to hypercalcemia, they may not be prone to develop dysarrhythmias. Although there is a prolongation of QT interval, this is only due to ST segment increase. Okay, there can be torsades, there can be this arrhythmias. This is a severe form of ventricular arrhythmia. Torsade de Pontis is a severe form of ventricular arrhythmia. This can happen, but very less. Unlike here in hypokalemia, where there is more common, whereas in hypercalcemia, although there is a QTC prolongation, they are not prone for that much of these ventricular arrhythmias. Now, you should remember there are 2-3 conditions where the QT interval is shortened. One is hypercalcemia, other one is digoxin toxicity. The QT interval can get shortened. These are important ones at least. Shortening of hypercalcemia. In shortened QT interval is shortened here. In severe hypercalcemia, Osborn waves are seen. I'll show that. Osborn waves, they are seen even in case of hypothermia. You can see them. I'll show them. And there are the J waves are seen. Ventricular irritability VF arrest has been reported with extreme hypercalcemia. There can be these complications also, arrhythmias. Now, I was talking about Osborn waves here. Basically, this is a good Osborn wave here. So, in the terminal part of the R wave, you can see a small notch. Here, can you see this notch? This is the Osborn wave. These are Osborn waves which can be seen even in hypercalcemia and very nicely seen in hypothermia. Okay, hypothermia, these Osborn waves are seen, and there can be bradycardias, junctional bradycardias, all that, atrial fibrillation, all that, based on artifacts of shivering. As these patients in hypothermia, these patients will have shivering that can be seen there on ECG. Now we'll come to digoxin effect. So there are two things, digoxin effect and digoxin toxicity. Digoxin effect is downsloping of ST depression here. ST depression is there in, like you do check mark like this, na? There can be inverse check mark. This is inverse check mark. Mirror image. Inverse check mark can be seen in digoxin effect. The T waves may become flattened or inverted or biphasic, and as said, shortening of QT interval. It can be seen here. Digoxin effect. Okay. These are just signs of digoxin effect. But if there is a toxicity of digoxin, then we may start saying VPCs, ventricle biseminy, triseminy, sinus bradycardia, slow atrial fibrillation, and AV blocks, first degree, second degree, third degree, AV blocks. These things they may not ask you about this. Just remember that the degrees of AV block. Okay. And atrial fibrillation. What is atrial fibrillation? The atrial fibrillation is the ventricular rate. One thing you should always remember in atrial, in atrial fibrillation, ventricular rate, ventricular rate, ventricle is irregular. Okay, that is signic one of atrial fibrillation. But if there is a complete AV nodal block, then the ventricle may become regular. This is a rare thing, but it can happen. Not just rare. If there is a complete AV nodal block, the ventricle rate may become regular. Otherwise, in atrial fibrillation, ventricle is irregularly contracting. It is okay. That's about ventricle rate. So, if there is a severe toxicity, and if it is causing this third degree AV block, the atrial fibrillation which is there may become regular ventricle rate. That can happen. Regularize AF. That's what it can happen. Complete AV block it can induce. Decoction. They can of course can cause all these arrhythmias. All the arrhythmias can happen. Now that's about part 1. We'll go to part 2. I think I'll finish the complete ECG today. You're all there? Are tired? Hello? You want me to go to part 2 and finish it off? Nobody's answering. Tell me now. Shivanand. Tomorrow, sir. What about others? Tomorrow there is a ortho class, man. So, Ayush, Vishal, I don't know why they're not speaking. Okay, sir. Okay, those people who wants, they can always see the recorded class. Okay, I'll finish it off because there is tomorrow ortho class. So we'll come to briefly about ischemic heart disease. Okay, in ischemic heart disease, this is the heart, and you can see this is the aorta, and this is the pulmonary artery, and we have got from the aorta, we get two arteries. One is the right coronary artery, other one is left coronary artery. Whereas the left coronary artery divides into left circumflex artery and left anterior descending artery. The right coronary artery doesn't divide like that; it just goes. So these are major divisions of the heart. These are coronary arteries. The coronary arteries are the one which supply the blood supply to heart. Now, ischemic heart disease, I will just focus on these things: stable angina and acute coronary syndromes. Okay, the stable angina and acute coronary syndromes. Again, acute coronary syndromes can be NSTMI and STEMI. You see, stable angina doesn't have any further classification. We forget that. We'll come to acute coronary syndromes. Acute means these people have got some acute problem. Stable angina means these are OPD patients. These are OPD patients. These may require admission. Acute coronary syndrome may require admission, like that. So these acute coronary syndromes are classified into NSTEMI and STEMI. This is non-ST elevation MI. So this classification basically is after what? This ST segment. What? Wherever I was at. Okay. ST segment. This ST segment, this is basically on that. So if the ST segment is gone up or gone down, depending upon that, the acute coronary syndromes are divided. If it is, sorry, I said something wrong. So if the ST segment has gone up, then it is STEMI. If not gone up, then it is NSTEMI. It not necessarily should go down. NSTMI means ST segment may be normal also. You never know. It may be normal also. You never know. Yes. Yeah. So STEMI means ST elevation. N STEMI means no ST elevation. That's all it is. So it might have gone down or maybe isoelectric. So NSTMI is further divided into unstable angina and subendocardial infarction. Okay. Subendocardial infarction. I'll come to them. Now, so the ST segment here you can see. This is the, what is this? PR segment. This PR segment here, if you draw a line, this has gone up here. So this is STEMI. This is STEMI. ST elevation MI. Whereas here, the PR segment, here it of course it has gone down. It is N STEMI. NSTMI. Depending upon that, N STEMI it is. So ST elevation MI means the heart damage is full thickness MI it is. Throughout the myocardium completely, the particular part of the heart is infarcted or dead. Whereas in NSTMI, only part of the heart, not full thickness. See, this part is spared. Only part of the heart is infarcted or ischemic. That's what it is, NSTMI. So if it is limiting to subendocardium, then it becomes NSTMI. If it is full thickness, it becomes, or transmural, it becomes ST elevation MI. Now we'll discuss about stable angina. Stable angina chest pain is mild, occurs after effort. That means the patient who is getting, I'm drinking water now. Here, particular quantity of work, if the patient is getting chest pain since last many days, then this patient is stable with these symptoms. It is stable with these symptoms, then he is classified as stable angina. For example, a worker who walks for 200 meters, he gets chest pain, they take rest for 5 minutes, then again able to, and this is happening. So since last 1 year or something like that, then he is a case of stable angina. Mostly since long time, same thing I'm telling you. That is stable angina. That means this is the problem, this is the quantity of problem. Nothing much is happening there. That's what it is telling. Stable angina. Now, unstable angina means you don't know the case actually. You don't know the case. The don't know the case means when the cases come first time, the chest pain, you never know. What is it? It can progress, it can stay, or it can be do any havoc there. So first case, first time chest pain. That's unpredictable course. You are not able to. More severe form of chest pain. Chest pain coming at rest is not stable angina. Chest pain coming at rest is not stable angina, it is unstable angina. And here unstable angina means there is a chest pain. The patient is getting pain for 100 meters since last 100 meters of walk, last 1 year. Suddenly, in last 10 days, he is getting it for 50 meters only now. There is a change in this pattern, the change in the severity of the pain. Then the patient who was stable angina has now become unstable. There is a change in the pattern. So he has become unstable. That's what it is. There is changing picture. But in unstable angina, there is no myocardial damage. There is just ischemia, no infarct. Hold on a minute. I am attending a. No, there is a. Hold on a second. Okay, I am back. Okay. So we'll go to N STEMI. So the difference between N STEMI, that is subendocardial. It is not N STEMI. The word here it should be sub endocardial. So infarction it is. Sub N STEMI or subendocardial infarction. So ECG is similar to unstable angina, whereas the cardiac enzymes are raised because there is a infarct. There is a death in the muscle. Muscle is dying, whereas in unstable angina, the muscles have not died. There is just ischemia. Huh? 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 Okay. Okay. Now we'll come to the ECG. I think these people have understood that is the NSTEMI and all that. Okay. We'll come to ECG manifestations of stable angina, unstable angina, NSTEMI. ECGs are more or less same. Only thing is clinical picture. The difference between stable angina and unstable angina is the clinical picture. These are stable patients, these are unstable patients. If there is associated enzyme elevation, then it becomes infarct. Now we'll go to STEMI proper. STEMI proper. STEMI is a more severe form of a heart attack, severe chest pain, ST elevation will be there. So STEMI can be grossly called as inferior wall and anterior wall STEMI. So if the involvement is lead 2, 3 AVF, remember that lead 2, 3 and AVF. If there is a ST elevation in these leads, then it is inferior wall. If not, it is anterior wall. See other leads, na? So you can see here. Other leads fall in the anterior wall. Whereas remember these three. Lead 2, 3 and AVF. If there is a ST elevation, then it is inferior wall MI. Okay. And if the ST elevation of more than 2 mm is required for chest leads and for rest of the leads is 1 mm is sufficient. I mean to say that. Okay, I got here only. Why should I go ahead? Hold on. Here. So if you want to say, this STEMI in chest leads, these are the chest leads. These are chest leads. Here, if you want to say there is a ST elevation, at least 2 squares, there is a ST elevation. Whereas in the limb leads, 1 square is sufficient. 1 square ST elevation is sufficient to call ST elevation. That is the rule. Now, this patient you just see what has happened. There is a ST elevation in lead 1, lead AVL, lead V1. V1 is not much there. V2 is there. V3, this is not there. So we have got ST elevation here, 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 and here. You can see 1 AVL, V1, V2, V3, and all this. Whereas lead 2, 3, and AVF, there is no ST elevation. In fact, in lead 3, you are seeing ST depression. You can see that? In lead 3, there is a ST depression. Okay, that's what. So if you find ST elevation with ST depression, always go for STEMI diagnosis. In this case, you are getting a ST elevation here. Of course, there is a ST depression here. So still you should call it as STEMI only. So these ST depressions are called reciprocal changes, or ischemia at distance, or reciprocal changes. Reciprocal or ischemia at distance. Either of them you can call these two. Whereas these are all, so this is a case of anterior wall, MI, STEMI. Okay. Similarly, this is a case of inferior wall. You are able to see ST elevation here, lead 2, lead 3, and lead AVF. You are seeing ST elevation. So this is inferior wall STEMI. And of course, you are seeing ST depression in anterior lead. Yes, see, you are seeing ST depression here. So this is a inferior wall MI. This is the, what is reciprocal change. Reciprocal or ischemia at a distance. Okay. Once the infarct occurs, the ECG changes over the time. It doesn't say fixed. So initially this is a normal wave. The first thing when a STEMI happens, the first thing that happens is T wave's height increase. The T wave becomes more tall and peaked. You see the T wave has become more tall and peaked. After that, the ST elevation happens. You can see ST is picking up. Here, ST segment is isoelectric, whereas ST T wave is increased. After some minutes, the ST is going up. You see, ST is going up fully. From minutes to hours, this evolution happens from ST elevation, goes on increasing. So from ours to this one, the what is happening is loss of R wave. The R wave, this R wave has become is lost here. It has become Q waves. Voltage of the R wave is coming down. It has almost gone down here. So R wave has become Q wave. In fact, it has become negative. The positive R wave has been replaced with the negative wave, the Q wave. Then comes the R wave, Q wave is formed. That's what it is. Then the T wave becomes negative. T wave, which was positive here, has become negative here. Huh? Then later on, this ST segment also comes down to normal. The T wave reappears, becomes positive, whereas this Q wave persists after days to months. This persists. Old. So if you find a big Q wave, it suggests a old MI, old STEMI. It is a old case of STEMI. So something about early repolarization syndrome. See, the confusion can happen. I don't know. There are some questions. I'll just touch upon it. The early repolarization syndrome means there is a ST elevation here, whereas the type of ST elevation is see, it is a concave like this, like this. You can see ST has gone up. You can see classically ST has gone up. ST has gone up, and so there is a it is a concave like this. And the T wave, usually the T wave is like this, like this. So the initial part is more slope, less slope, whereas this is sudden drop like this. That is the T wave is like this usually. With respect to early repulsor syndrome, it is symmetrical tall waves. T wave it is. This slanting part becomes more like distal part. It becomes more symmetrical. So the upward prominent concave S wave, the J point. J point means, hold on, I'll show what is J point. This is a J point. The junction of the ST segment, with the QRS complex. This is the J point. The arrow you can see here. This is the J point. That is the J point. This is a very benign condition. There can be slurring of the R wave, absence of reciprocal changes. The things when you get ST elevation with respect to early repulse syndrome, you'll be having a confusion. Am I dealing this case as a STEMI or it is a just case of early repulse syndrome? That needs to be differentiated. That's the reason. This is how you should differentiate. So now we'll briefly touch upon bundle branch blocks. So as I told, in the ventricles there are two bundles, left and right bundles. Left and right bundles. So this is a lead V1, this is a lead V6. This is a lead V1 and lead V6. See, in case of RBBV, what is this? M. This is W. Here it is W. This is M. So in case of RBBV, V1 becomes M shaped, V6 becomes W shaped. With respect to LBBB, V1 becomes W shaped, V6 becomes M shaped. You can remember this. Okay, so M pattern of that is RSR. Yes, R pattern. If you see in a V1, it suggests what? It suggests RBBB. If you get like this QS complex, sometimes there can be one negative wave QS pattern predominant downward in V1, then it suggests LBBB. Okay. So that's the same thing I told here. V1 it is negative. V1 this is for positive. RBBB means V1 is positive. Lead 1 is negative. Lead V1 is negative. Opposite for V6. Diagnostic criteria for RBBB means for any bundle branch blocked, the duration of the QRS complex should be more than 3 small squares. That is 0.012. What is that? Is normal duration of QRS complex is this much. If it is more than that, it is RBBB. There is a delayed conduction. Now, depending upon the ECG, you should say the broad QRS more than 0.012 seconds is complete RBVB. So RSR pattern in V1 to V3 is M-shaped and wide stirred as wave can be seen. So laterally, it's also you can see that V6. This is a sign. See, you can see here. See here. This is a M pattern. You can see that. See, one important thing, otherwise you can look in lead 1 also. I don't think so. There's a wider part. Its part is wider part of the QRS complex is a terminal part here. Compared to this is a part is predominantly negative in case of RVV. In case of LVV, this is predominantly positive. I'll show that. That also can be used. Lead 1 also can be used to diagnose. Otherwise, use this. Causes of RVV, you should know that they can ask questions. Pulmonary embolism, along with the interval MI, pulmonary stenosis, atrial septal disease, pulmonary artery hypertension, COPD, then chronic coronary artery disease. All this can come with RVVB. Diagnostic criteria are LVV. QRS duration, as I said, is more even for this dominant S wave than negative wave in a V1. That is one thing. Prolonged QRS complex will show that. See here. See, in RVV, this was like this M pattern, whereas here it is like this. This is LVV. It is predominantly negative. In RVV, this was lead one was positive, and here this is predominantly positive in lead 1. Lead 1 is predominantly positive in case of LVV. In case of RVV, the terminal part is negative. That's what. Causes of LVV, aortic stenosis, aortic regurgitation, mitral valve calcification, all these things. You can read them. Now will come something about chamber enlargement. There are chamber at two types of enlargement, volume and pressure. So volume means it's all regurgitations here. MR, AR, PR, TR, mitral regurgitation, aortic regurgitation, pulmonary regurgitation, trachea, all these things are regurgitant lesions will produce volume overload. All the stenotic lesions will produce pressure overload. So as I told you, that is P wave. If it cannot divide like this. Initial part is right atrium, the later part is left atrium. So right atrium initial portion is a P wave is lead 2 is increased height. See, the abnormalities, the enlargement of the right atrium will produce increase in the height. The enlargement of the left atrium produces widening, will increase the duration. So left atrium enlargement produces a widened P wave. Right atrium enlargement produces increase in the height of the P wave, and that is in the lead V1. Lead V1. And in lead V1, you can see the positive first part is more prominent in case of right atrial enlargement, whereas in case of left atrial enlargement, there is terminal part is wider and deeper. That is more than one small square. That's about this. These slides are available on this one. You can download and read them. Causes of right atrial enlargement are atrial septal disease, and then COPD, pulmonary valve stenosis, tricuspid stenosis, mitral valve regurgitation, stenosis, and all that. Similarly, left or mitral valve, aortic stenosis. These are all left atrial enlargements. So we'll talk something about left ventricular hypertrophy. See, the left ventricular hypertrophy will produce a prominent R waves here. So the left ventricle predominantly manifest here. This is opposite part. V1 is opposite, V6 is in the left ventricle. So what happens is if there is a LVH, it will produce negative wave here. Deeper, this is double height. So deeper, it will produce deeper QRS complex, negative QRS complex, whereas in for left ventricular hypertrophy, whereas positive R wave in V1. So if you add up V1 and V6 voltages, that is S wave in V1 plus R wave in V6, if it is more than 35 mm, then it suggests LVH. So the S wave in a V1 and R wave in lead V5, if it is more than 3.5 millivolts or 35 mm, it suggests LVH. Huh? So similarly, right ventricle will produce, there are a lot many criteria. R wave in V1, if it is more than 7 millivolts, 7 mm, RS ratio, so many criteria are there. You try to remember as many as possible. Huh? Okay, these criteria you can go through. Thank you. Now, if you got any doubts, you can ask me. If people don't ask anything, many of you are left. Shivanand, Kumutigi, Vishal, Vishal,
Yes, sir.
any doubts you have?